What's up, everyone? Welcome to the May 24th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, use the code Awesemo when you sign up and deposit at PrizePicks. You receive 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum, and you also receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. We have a 12-game MLB slate tonight, and as usual, we're going to take a look at 3 of the top tournament stacks and 3 of the top tournament pitchers using the Top Stacks tool and the Boom Bust tool on the Awesemo.com website. Starting with the top 3 tournament stacks. Number 3, the Seattle Mariners are taking on James Kaprielian tonight in Seattle. Kaprielian has a 21.1% strikeout percentage, 4.53 xFIP so far this season, and he's also allowed 1.5 home runs per 9 innings. Seattle's projected for about 2% ownership with a 4% chance of being the top scoring stack and a 7% chance of being the top value stack. The Mariners have a 119 WRC plus and a 139 ISO so far this season. Number 2, the Toronto Blue Jays taking on Jordan Hicks and the St. Louis Cardinals tonight in St. Louis. Toronto is projected for about 2% ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring stack and a 4% chance of being the top value stack. They have a 4.2 implied run total, but that doesn't tell the whole story because we know that there's a lot of upside, a lot of power in the Toronto lineup, and games where they do well offensively, they can really throw up some big numbers because of the number of home runs that they're capable of hitting. They're certainly not a team that is just going to slap the ball around the park and try and score runs that way. Hicks so far this year does have a 24.1% strikeout percentage, but he does also have a bit of an inflated xFIP at 4.39. Toronto's active roster only has a 95 WRC plus and a 141 ISO, but we know the amount of talent that is in this lineup. And number 1, the Atlanta Braves taking on Kyle Gibson tonight in Atlanta. They're projected for 5% ownership with an 8% chance of being the top scoring stack and 4% chance of being the top value stack. They have a 4.8 implied run total against Gibson. Gibson's only struck out about 20.8% of hitters this year, but he does have a respectable 3.7 xFIP. Typically does a good job keeping the ball on the ground. He's only allowed 0.84 home runs per 9 innings, but Atlanta's always a nice team to target in tournaments because they have so much power and so much speed in their lineup. It gives them a very high ceiling, even in relatively difficult matchups like they have tonight. So far this season, Atlanta's active roster has a 101 WRC plus and a 173 ISO. Now, looking at the top 3 tournament pitchers, number 3, Chris Bassett, projected for 1% ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring pitcher and a 1% chance of being the top value pitcher. He's $10,000 taking on the San Francisco Giants in San Francisco. Bassett has struck out 24.5% of hitters with a 3.71 xFIP so far this season. The Giants' active roster has been above average with a 106 WRC plus. They've only struck out 20.4% of the time, but this is also a nice park shift for Bassett going into San Francisco. Number 2, Framber Valdez, projected for 4% ownership with a 5% chance of being the top scoring pitcher and a 2% chance of being the top value pitcher. He's taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Valdez has only struck out 19.7% of hitters so far this season, but he does have a very strong 3.2 xFIP, typically does a good job of avoiding hard contact, keeps the ball on the ground. The low strikeout percentage also helps with his efficiency. Not using as many pitches in at-bats allows him to go a little bit deeper into games, and that is worth mentioning when you're talking about FanDuel, where you get bonus points for a quality start. The Guardians have been above average. Their active roster has a 112 WRC plus. They're also difficult to strike out with a 19.1% strikeout percentage. And number 1, Kevin Gausman, in a very difficult matchup against the St. Louis Cardinals, who lead baseball with a 132 WRC plus and also have only struck out about 17% of the time. But Gausman's been an excellent pitcher so far this year for Toronto. 28.9% strikeout percentage for Gausman, 2.31 xFIP. He's only $9,400. He's projected for 4% ownership with a 6% chance of being the top scoring pitcher and a 3% chance of being the top value pitcher. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks rather on FanDuel. Number 3, the Seattle Mariners. Number 2, the Toronto Blue Jays. And number 1, the Atlanta Braves. And the top 3 tournament pitchers, number 3, Chris Bassett. Number 2, Framber Valdez, and number 1, Kevin Gausman.